Hello there and welcome to the most watched business show in the country. This is the Business Weekly Show here on City TV and I am your host Michael Obodu. In the next 1 hour, I'll be bringing you a wrap of all the major business news stories for the week. So if you're ready, let's go. We start off today's show talking about the electronic transfer levy. Did you get any wrongful deductions in the first few days of the implementation of the levy? Have you gotten a refund? The Ghana Revenue Authority says it has so far reimbursed more than 120,000 people since the policy took effect. After much agitations and protests against the electronic transfer levy, it finally took effect from the 1st of May 2022. But it wasn't without the usual challenges that confront the implementation of a new policy, especially in its initial stages. Some persons were overcharged, while others had monies deducted from their accounts, even though their transactions were exempted from paying the policy. Many took to social media to vent their frustration with the situation. But nearly 2 weeks into the introduction of the policy, some of these concerns have already been addressed.
The data we had for those who had refund on 1st of May, because they are doing it on different daily basis. 1st of May from one particular charging entity was around 128,000 customers whose monies have been refunded for 1st of May. I do not have the statistics for the other charging entities and for the other days that the transfers, the reversal has been made. We've met the Trade Association, the Mobile Money Association. We have seen that the transfers have stabilized. People are now gaining confidence that when they transact with the vendors, cash in is not affected by the e-levy, cash out is also not affected by e-levy. And with the provision for also online businesses where they are being protected so that when you are purchasing online, you don't have to pay e-levy. We are very confident that it will stabilize and people would transact on the mobile money platform once again.
Speaking to the media on the sidelines of a sensitization forum by the Ghana Revenue Authority for some trade associations in Accra on the e-levy, Deputy Minister of Finance Abena Osei-Asare stated the government's commitment towards continuous education on the implementation of the levy.
As part of disseminating the information on e-levy, we have decided to meet various associations and groups to really bring information on e-levy down to them. And today we had the opportunity of engaging the beauticians, the tailors, and a couple of other associations. And in there we told them that government is looking at raising about 80.3 billion Ghana cedis through various revenue measures in 2022. And e-levy is also part of the measures that government is going to use to contribute to the 80.3 billion. We were hoping that the e-levy would have started in February, where government sought to raise 6.9 billion Ghana cedis through the e-levy. But it did not happen in February. It rather happened in May. So definitely government will have to revise the e-levy amount that it hopes to raise for 2022.
Many people trooped to banking halls to carry out transactions when the e-levy took off, all in a bid to avoid paying the levy. That must have meant a lot of work for banks as the numbers were overwhelming in some cases. But about 2 weeks into the introduction of the levy, how are things looking now for the banks? The electronic transfer levy is a 1.5% charge on selected e-transactions introduced by the government as part of its revenue mobilization drive. Prior to its implementation, many had kicked against it, arguing that it would amount to double taxation. Momo vendors, on the other hand, raised concerns that the policy could threaten their livelihoods as many Momo users empty their accounts to avoid the levy. Once the policy took effect, many banks recorded above normal visits as many people resorted to coming into the banks to carry out transactions. However, That earlier influx seems to have died down 1 week on. Speaking to City Business News, Corporate Communications Manager at Republic Bank, Festus Tetemate, added that his outfit has so far been able to streamline their systems for the effective implementation of the policy.
It's something that we've all have had the pinch of it. You know, you transfer something and you can see it, especially how it's arranged. There's a fees and there's a tax, and you can see everything, which I think that from the perspective of as a bank or as a service provider, you are being very clear, giving them the information that they will need, and as a consumer, you kind of feel the tax that you are paying. But at the end of the day, it is something that is law now. We will probably have to adjust to it or accept that this is what it is, and we just all hope that government make good use of it, and I think that's the most important thing that we all need. Well, I think for now things has normalized. I mean, on that day you probably had more people in the banking hall. Like I just said, that is a human thing, you know. But now we don't see that everything has normalized and all that. So, like I said, we've all have adjusted to it currently, and it's now part of us. We just have to accept that this is what it is, and then just move on and make sure that it turns out to be a better Ghana for all of us.
Still on the e-levy, the Mobile Money Agents Association of Ghana has made a sudden U-turn to support its implementation. They had earlier strongly opposed the policy, arguing that it would threaten their livelihoods. Their concerns were further heightened when cases of panic withdrawals were recorded across the country ahead of the implementation of the levy. But what could have changed?
At a meeting with President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House, the association says its initial resistance to the policy was as a result of miscommunication and ignorance on the part of its members. The association says though it now supports the implementation of the levy, challenges Momo agents face needs to be resolved. General Secretary of the association, Evans Otunfo, who led the delegation to the Jubilee House, says the association will help government in its public education on e-levy.
Your Excellency, recently we have witnessed government's plan to introduce an electronic transaction levy, which as an association we have raised a number of concerns. But as we speak now, yesterday we were in a meeting with the Ministry of Finance, Ghana Revenue Authority and other relevant stakeholders, and most of our concerns regarding the electronic transactions levy have been addressed. So we believe that as an association, it is important that as a nation, drastic measures are taken in drastic times when the need be. The levy has now been passed into law and all citizens must obey. So we are here as allies, not opposing forces. We also commend the government for taking bold steps to reduce the electronic transactions levy from the initial 1.75 to 1.5 and a tall list of exemptions provided by the levy. We had wished it to reduce further for fear of its attendant impact on our businesses. Your Excellency, we appeal to you and the Minister of Finance to expedite actions to look at the challenges that the levy has brought to us as agents in line of doing our business, such as deductions that are made at the agent's account in an attempt to push funds from their agent's account to their bank account for purposes of withdrawals and other agents-related activities.
President Akufo-Addo on his part thanked the association for supporting the e-levy and promised to address all concerns.
I'm also very, very encouraged and grateful also for the offer of partnership to make sure this controversial tax that I have been forced to bring into being is successfully administered. I think it's appropriate that people, direct stakeholders like you, voice out your concerns as you did, and that these concerns are taken into account by government so that when the law is finally shaped like it has been, it's one that is meaningful for the state and is equally meaningful for the private sector operatives who are in the area. So I welcome very much this offer of partnership, the idea of an alliance for us to work together to see how best this new tax can be implemented and developed. As you can see, very senior officials of the tax authority are here, because now you're going to be one of the main sources of their revenue. And we all have to be very encouraged that we have such responsible young men.
It appears the implementation of the e-levy may have renewed the government's resolve to steer the economy out of the current storm. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has reiterated government's decision not to seek help from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for debt relief. He believes the government is on course with restoring the macroeconomic stability through the implementation of homegrown measures.
According to the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, the International Monetary Fund knows that Ghana is on course with restoring macroeconomic stability through the implementation of internal measures and policies to deal with the fundamental issues affecting the economy. He insists that government will continue to develop homegrown solutions to deal with the difficulties because the country has what it takes to turn its ailing economy around. The government, despite harsh criticisms, has on multiple occasions stated that the most prudent measure in the face of Ghana's ailing economy is not to go back to the IMF, but rather raise revenue domestically while cutting down on government expenditure. He reiterated government's stance of not going to the IMF no matter what at the minister's press briefing in Accra.
I think if you see from the budget that we constructed for 2022 and the subsequent announcements that we have done, clearly the issue of Ghana having the capacity to think through the consolidation exercises and also discipline itself with regards to the 20-30% cuts, etc., that we have shown, clearly a direction that I guess even in a sense the fund may be hesitant to push any further with regards to that. So clearly, with regards to sort of philosophical alignment about realizing that we needed this type of consolidation, we have done that. But we have committed, as you know, to not going back to the fund because in terms of intervention with policy, we are right there, and the fund notes that we are completely in the right direction. And so the issue is validating the program that we have put in place, and then, in my view, supporting us to find alternative ways of financing or refinancing our debt, reprofiling it without needing to be with the fund. And I think there's general acknowledgement that should be thought of as the first port of call, and we are doing it.
Speaking on the electronic transfer levy, Ken Ofori-Atta said government is optimistic monies accrued from the implementation of the e-levy will help fix the current budget deficit.
Running a budget deficit, which essentially connotes that our revenues are below our expenditure, and that's why the intervention of the e-levy was so important. We announced the budget, I guess, November 17th or so, and it wasn't until that miracle day of March 29th that we got through Parliament with that. I'm very confident that it opens a whole new vista for our tax handles and a way in which all Ghanaians would also be paying something. I don't know of any program which has technology involved that will not have teething problems. But certainly the cataclysmic, pronouncement by our people on the other side is not happening. I think we pretty much have it under control as much as you can.
On the issue of rising inflation in the country, he noted that though the situation is a global one, government is committed to building an entrepreneurial society to help reduce imported inflation.
It's good to know that the government acknowledges that the country is in some level of economic distress, because the consumer price index for the month of April has gone up as compared to the previous month. It just gets one wondering what this month would be, as transport fares also went up earlier in the week.
The soaring prices of food in the country only seems to be getting worse, as the recent figures from the Ghana Statistical Service proves that food inflation was one of the main drivers of the inflation rate for April. Industry players have consistently asked for government's intervention to salvage the situation. Some, like the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana, have even suggested the constitution of a National Food Security Committee that will control the supply and pricing of food commodities in the country. The issue of transport fares also remains a big headache for Ghanaians, as the country has seen a recent increment in fares by 20% due to the rising cost of fuel. Many have attributed these hikes to the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war. The rise in the inflation rate for April 2022 comes as the highest recorded since the Ghana Statistical Service rebased the Consumer Price Index in August 2019. Here is the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobran Enim, giving a breakdown of the main drivers for the inflation rate for the month of April.
From a regional perspective, Central Region recorded the highest rate of inflation of 26.7%, and the Upper East Region recorded the least rate of inflation of 18.4%. We disaggregated inflation from a domestic inflation and imported inflation perspective, with domestic inflation, otherwise known as locally produced items, recording an inflation rate of 23.0% relative to imported inflation 24.7%. As was indicated, this is the first time that imported inflation in the last 29 months has recorded inflation rates surpassing domestic inflation with a difference of 1.7 percentage point. This was as a result of the increase of about 7.4 percentage points for imported inflation between the months of March and April 2022, and about 3 percentage point difference from the perspective of the domestic inflation, jumping from 20.0 in the month of March 2022 to 23.0 for the month of April 2022. From a food inflation and a non-food inflation, we see that we've maintained the margins for the month of March and April 2022, with food inflation for April 2022 standing at 26.6% and non-food inflation standing at 21.3%. From both perspectives, we've seen about a 5.3, 5.4 variations over the period, moving from 22.4% from the month of March 2022 and 17.0% for non-food inflation for the month of from the month of March to April 2022.
Talking about increment in prices, I'm sure there was a lot of drama in public transport vehicles as some operators increased their prices before the proposed date. The drivers say the rampant rise in the price of fuel is affecting them and they can no longer absorb it.
New fares are up. Drivers at various bus terminals in Accra, including Kwame Nkrumah Circle and 37 Military Station, have started charging passengers 20% more. The increase in fares follows a directive by the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, to operators to adjust their fares upwards by 20%. There was 80 pesos increase from Circle to Dansoman. Wisdom Afugu is a student nurse heading to Dodoa from Circle for studies, and he was targeted that his fare has been increased from 9 cities to 11 cities.
It's very, should I say, it's very disturbing though, because as I'm talking now, we are, our allowances are not even in, and then they charging these huge amounts of transport is something. So we are trying to fit in, but it's just not easy.
According to GPRTU, the reason for the increment in fares is the hike in fuel prices and government's failure to scrap some taxes on petroleum products. Jacob Arthur is an artist, and he is worried the increment will affect him as an artist.
It will affect me in a way that, as my raw materials I buy, conveying them from the place where I buy them to where I do my work. So you see, basically, when you buy something, conveying it from the place where you bought it to the house the increment has effect on that.
This will be the second time the transport operators have increased fares in 2022. In February 2022, the operators increased it by 15%. But this time round, Niam Ponsang, a driver, believes the increment is the only option to save his business.
The moment they increase fuel, the lubricants and other spare parts are also increased. And when you operate a transport, it doesn't mean that you only buy fuel. You buy spare parts and a lot of things so that you maintain your vehicle to be always on the road. So people don't, or the passengers or Ghanaians in there shouldn't think that it's only fuel that we buy to maintain our vehicles on the road. We buy spare parts, a lot of things to put your vehicle in a good condition to operate. So it's very, very difficult to operate now.
A liter of fuel now sells around 10 Ghana cedis after crossing the 8 Ghana cedis per liter mark in the first week of March 2022. However, John Mensah, just like any other passenger, wants government to engage the transport operators to find an amicable solution to the increase in transport fares.
I wish the government would do something about it, because as you know, things are very, very tough. Very tough. Sometimes when you work and the money doesn't come. I'm a technician. Sometimes when I go and I work, they will tell you money is not there, go and come here and there. Things are very tough. But as I've said, there's nothing you can do about it. What the government has made its mind to do, he will do it.
We might have to brace ourselves for the worst, because it isn't just transport fares, but we might have to prepare to pay more for electricity and water. The utility companies believe an upward adjustment in tariffs has become crucial to sustaining their operations.
Present at the meeting were major service providers, energy think tanks, the media, and consumer protection agencies. Some of the major players, the Volta River Authority, the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, Electricity Company of Ghana, and the Ghana Water Company Limited, during their presentations, outlined some of the reasons why they need an upward adjustment. The Ghana Water Company Limited is requesting for over 300% increment, while the Electricity Company of Ghana is proposing a 148% increment for the year 2022. Both institutions have been heavily critiqued for the proposal. The Ghana Water Company listed the debt incurred from the operation of the desalination plant and the impact of water pollution as a result of illegal mining and sand winning as some of the reasons why it is requesting over 300% increment of water tariffs.
Desalination plants we are managing with. It is a take or pay arrangement between Ghana Water and then the BBDG. What it means is that we are to pay a capacity charge of 1.4 million Ghana cedis dollars every month, $1.4 million every month. Whether they are able to provide you with water or not, you have to pay. The challenge here is, even if it's in the tariff, the challenge here is the tariff is approved so many years ago. Another reason why we want our tariffs to be looked at is pollution.
The exchange rates provided by PURC, which is 5.37. So what it means is that for ECG, when we have invoices from our IPPs, there's no way they are going to accept 5.3 as the exchange rate. I mean, when they go out, what they get is the market rate. And this translates into a cost to ECG, and in 2021 alone, it cost ECG 867 million cedis just for forest losses. Another external factor impacting on ECG's operations is world market prices of metal.
The service providers impressed upon the PURC to accept the proposals. They outlined some of the innovations and projects they will embark on to reduce generational and production losses.
On the average, after 2022, the 148 is due to the accumulation. Now, after 2022, from 23 to 26, it's just an average of 7.6. It's just an average of 7.6. So if this tariff is approved by PURC, this country is not going to see ECG propose anything above 10% year on year.
Some industry players, including energy think tanks and the Consumer Protection Agency, questioned the basis of the tariff increment. They indicated that the focus of power producers should be on building the needed infrastructure that ensures efficiency to bring relief to consumers.
Sitting through the presentation, I think things are worse than I actually thought. And the demands really, there is no way they can pass on what they are demanding to the consumers, because we're seeing a lot of inefficiencies. I mean, for ECG, for example, their inefficiency has grown to about 29% year on from 26 previous years to 29, and they contrast that with an appreciable investment, almost $600 million investment since 2018. So the fundamental question is, how are we optimizing that investment? Is the investment yielding efficiency and enabling them to really do what they are supposed to do? So those are the issues that PURC will have to interrogate and ensure that we don't continue to pass on the inefficiency to the consumer.
Even though the utility companies have justified their calls for higher tariffs, it may be sparking another cycle that disenfranchises consumers, because the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry has described the request as outrageous, saying it will hamper their operations. Clearly, should the water and electricity companies have their way, industry players will definitely pass on the additional cost to consumers.
The 148% increase in tariffs for the Electricity Company of Ghana, according to the company, will be for the year 2022, with 7.6% average adjustment between the periods of 2023 to 2026. The sharp proposed increment, according to the ECG, is due to the gap between the actual cost recovery tariff and the PURC approved tariffs, as well as the cost of completed projects. In justifying its demand for a 343% tariff increment, the Ghana Water Company Limited says the income generated from the current water tariffs is not adequate enough to support its expenditure. In an interview with City Business News, the CEO of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Biduabwaji, warned that such high tariff increases, if approved, will be detrimental to the operations of businesses in Ghana.
The increment is unfavorable. We are totally against that, and for two reasons. One, the timing is not good, and two, the proposed rates are for us too high. Now, businesses are now coming out of recovering from COVID. And this year has been a very difficult year for businesses. We've seen the cedi depreciating rapidly. Inflation as at April is 23.6. We've seen the policy rate going up and affecting the interest rate. Fuel costs are also going up. So already the cost of doing business is very high. If you take a typical business, the cost of electricity constitutes about 20 to 30% of the total operation cost. So any increment, therefore, means that it's going to be difficult and detrimental to these businesses, because that cost component will go up from the 20-30% to a higher rate, and that is going to affect their productivity, it's going to affect their profit and also their pricing as well. So the increment for us is not too good at this time. The proposed rate of 148% for electricity and also 334% for water is outrageous, given the current circumstances. So we are going to engage PURC. We're going to express our concerns to them, and then we will see what we can do together.
Mr. Biduabwaji added that a further increase in the cost of production will make Ghanaian businesses uncompetitive within the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
More so at this time where we are talking about after, our ability to compete is more relevant. And already other countries are having electricity and energy at a lower cost. If you look at Kenya and Ethiopia, the component of electricity on operational cost is very low, and therefore they may be more competitive than ours. So we should look at the bigger picture and look at how we can support industry and businesses if you really want to take effective part in this after. In other jurisdictions, the household compensate for the industry, means that they are paying more for the industry. In Ghana, it's totally different. The industry rather pay more should compensate for the household. And of course, when you do that, it means we are gradually killing our industries and we will not be competitive.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and Star Times box. City TV, it's your world.
Our farmers have been left out in the hike in prices because the continuous rise in the price of fertilizer and farm inputs is forcing a lot of them out of business. The Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana says they will be compelled to pass on the extra cost of production to consumers if the government does not intervene.
In recent times, hikes in prices of foodstuff across the country is taking a toll on households. Most consumers have called on the government to intervene. Peasant farmers, on the other hand, say the situation could be worse next year if the government does not attend to the needs of farmers. Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, PFAC, attributes the high cost of production to sharp price increases in fertilizer and farm inputs. At a ceremony organized by Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana to award sorghum farmers in Kayoro in the Upper East region, the farmers admonished the government to address such concerns to avert food insecurity as the planting season commences.
Before you can get a fertilizer, it will be maybe somewhere, I guess, thereabout. By that time, the crops are already like spoiled. So we'll be happy if they help us with the fertilizer. When the fertilizer come early and then we apply on the crops, maybe we'll also benefit, and then the government will benefit. Because we are producing for them. So we are pleading, if the government can come in with fertilizer, like if the problem for this community, the problem we are facing is the fertilizer. It always comes late and then all few.
These days, it's not like the olden days. We need these farm inputs. First of all, the varieties have been changed. We now need the improved varieties, which will help us to also benefit farming. And then from the varieties, we want the government to help us with fertilizers. That is also another problem, especially this year. The fertilizer issue is now the major issue that is affecting farmers, because every crop is now used to the fertilizer. Without the fertilizer, whatever you are doing it for nothing.
Executive Director of PFAC, Dr. Charles Nyaba, says the high cost of fertilizer and farm inputs has made the venture expensive. He hinted that consumers should brace themselves for more hikes in prices of foodstuff if the government fails to intervene.
There are several challenges that we want to use this forum to communicate with government. Cost of fertilizer, even with the government subsidy fertilizer, is now 320 Ghana cedis for the 50 kg. Cost of agro inputs like glyphosate, and other pesticides that we used to buy for 25 Ghana cedis is now going for 60 Ghana cedis. Total services that we used to get it between 100 and 120 is now going for 250 to 300 Ghana cedis. So if you put all this together, it means that if you don't get any intervention from government, next year food prices are going to more than escalate. Because as a farmer, we are business people. So if you invest in and then your cost of production goes up, you also save the cost to consumers. So consumers will also be prepared to pay more for food come 2023. Because as it stands, people are complaining that food prices are high. The next year is going to be more than that. So my immediate appeal to government to help farmers to remain in business, for us to be able to supply food to meet the demands of the consumers is to actually pay monies that they own fertilizer importers.
Dr. Iyaba entreated the government to reconsider its investments in irrigation to boost food security in the country.
The rate of the spiking prices in the country is worrying, and the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina, believes policymakers must address the situation.
Ghana's economy has in recent times experienced a downturn. Industry players have cited the cedi depreciation, spike in fuel prices, inflation rates, and the general increase in cost of living as pointers to the claim. Calls have been on the rise for the government to present an economic rescue plan to address the economic crisis, which only seems to be getting worse. Inflation, for instance, has recently seen a surge to record 23.6% for April 2022, up from the 19.4% recorded in March. Reacting to this development, economist Courage Boti is warning that Ghana might lose foreign investors if this continuous surge is not checked.
What it means for government at this point is that already inflation was way above the T-bill rate, which has depressed real returns on most of the fixed income investments. And so we've seen shortfalls in demand at the auctions over the last few weeks. With inflation now 23.6% and T-bill rate 91 days around 17.88%, still under 18%. I mean, the real return is even further depressed, and that will make it even more unattractive for investors, really. And so it appears that government would have to give up so much in terms of interest rates to be able to attract some demand for T-bills and then, of course, all the other fixed income investments at this point in time if they must fund the programs and policies of the 2022 budget.
The government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina, is also calling on policymakers to check the alarming situation.
So we tried pointing policymakers to what they have to look at, especially in light of the conversation around whether the inflation rate is heavily driven by the Russian invasion of Ukraine or some other factors. So from this perspective, we disaggregated the 307 items into items that are food or non-food and items that are locally produced or imported items. And also based on the 307 items, all the items that recorded inflation rates higher than the national average of 23.6, we looked at where these items were coming from, whether they were locally produced and they are food or non-food. And the domain that accounted for the highest of the 99 items that recorded changes in prices higher than 23.6 were items that were food and locally produced. So even if you are thinking about the impact of the Russian-Ukraine war on this component, it is secondary, it is not direct. Because once it's the Russian-Ukraine war, then it's either you look at the imported food or the imported non-food. And that is the first step of the impact of the Russian-Ukraine war. And this component also, that is if you put it together, that is the 25.3% for imported non-food and imported food 17.2%, you have in excess of 40%, which is also as impactful as the locally food items. But broadly, from a locally food items perspective, locally produced items perspective, that is either food or non-food, you have 40.4 plus 17.7, which is accounting for about 57% from a locally produced items. So this is the perspective from which we think policy should direct its attention, especially asking whether monetary policies can address all these different items in the same way, or you need a real sector to also address some of these changes in prices that we are seeing. So this is the conversation that we want policymakers to engage with rather than the 18-year high that we are seeing.
On his part, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been outlining what the government is doing in response to these calls. He spoke at a press briefing in Accra on Thursday.
I think really Cabinet was quite prescient about the budget that we had and the theme of building an entrepreneurial society is pretty clear. We're not even sure that these things were going to happen. So the 10 billion CD intervention, where you are then going to have people create their own jobs, and have work to do, is going to be important and enhance productivity towards this. Because imported inflation, what are you going to do about food, fuel, and financing from out there? The question is whether you can get our people working, whether our people can be more productive, so that we move towards, an environment in which lives and livelihoods are protected, but people are in control of their destiny.
The 21st century business school graduates might be inadequate without critical ICT skills that have become crucial in the ever-evolving corporate environment. Based on this, the Dean of the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Justice Bawale, believes that the fast pace of digitization globally requires that persons in the business world are technologically inclined beyond the mere rudiments of their professions. The Dean of the University of Ghana Business School, Professor Justice Bawale, made these assertions while speaking to the media on the sidelines of the launch of his outfit's anniversary on the theme, The Future of Business Education in Ghana, reflecting on the 60-year experience of the University of Ghana Business School. He stated that the role of ICT-related skills in the modern-day office setting cannot be overemphasized.
One of the things we have seen as being the critical evolving element in business education these days is the issue of AI, artificial intelligence, big data, and stuff like that, the Internet of Things. It's the thing that is driving business education now. So you cannot train a graduate today if they do not have these skill sets. It's not possible for anybody to function within the global community if you do not have the skill sets. The other thing that when I was a student, we just learned theory. We went to the organization and began to learn practicals from the. But companies are moving so fast. If you look at the new tech companies, in a year the company has grown from. There's no way that anybody is going to take you and grow you for 1 year. You must be prepared to enter and be able to contribute. So the Twitters, the Googles, all of those guys are looking for people who come in and can bring value straight away. And that is the expectation for business education now. It's no longer balancing your books. It's no longer drawing TE accounts. It's no longer, doing just performance appraisals and all of that.
Speaking at the same event, Vice President Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia urged business schools in the country to endeavor to strike a balance between theoretical and practical learning to ensure quality graduates are churned out for the job market. He subsequently presented some 100 laptops as part of efforts towards supporting the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana's One Student, One Laptop initiative to advance digitization on.
We have to run programs that are practical and experiential enough to generate interest from industry and civil society organizations. I'm aware of the tendency to over-theorize while offering instruction to students. And that's why I'm calling for a fairly balanced synchrony between theory and practice. Because I know that the theoretical framework of any area of specialty is also very important. In the area of research, I encourage you to adopt the triple helix model, that is a set of interactions between academia, industry, and government, to foster economic and social development. We encourage you to provide solutions to businesses and government on issues of innovation in business and policy for mutual benefits. Educational institutions are strategically placed to champion the development aspirations of the nation.
Is your financial institution charging you maintenance fees on your savings account? Please note that it is totally illegal because it is part of the fees that the Bank of Ghana says such institutions are prohibited from deducting from customers' funds. Wondering which other charges have been exempted?
In June 2021, the Bank of Ghana warned commercial banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions in Ghana to abolish unfair charges in the banking sector. In a statement, the bank noted that there are 7 charges being implemented by banks and SDIs which are deemed to be unfair, inappropriate and detrimental to the financial inclusion agenda and the protection of customers' interests. These charges included credit insurance premium overcharges, maintenance fees on savings accounts, over-the-counter withdrawal charges, change of ownership of collateral documents, application of interest on penal charges, quotation of monthly interest rates on credit facilities, and third-party deposits or withdrawal violations. In a recent statement, the central bank is tasking customers to report to it any suspicious or unapproved charges from their financial institutions. It is unclear why the BOG is reiterating this warning barely a year after the initial one. But in this statement, customers are being urged to assess their needs before subscribing to additional services such as transaction alerts and internet banking services, which may attract fees and charges on their accounts. The central bank is asking customers to always insist on their rights and report any breach to them if financial institutions charge any penal charge when customers go to withdraw money from their account over the counter. Furthermore, the statement stresses that it is unlawful for a financial institution to quote its interest on a monthly, daily or other basis apart from the annual, and as such, customers should report such a breach to the bank. On the issue of loans, customers are being taxed to always demand the annualized percentage rate on loans before accepting the loan facility, as this will help the customer know how much the loan will cost after its duration. Customers must then demand for all the necessary information before loan contracts are signed.
Some group of traders at Abosoka and Accra under the name National Concern Spare Parts Dealers are kicking against the plan by the government to relocate them. The relocation to Afenya in the Greater Accra region forms part of the West Africa Automotive Hub project and the government's efforts at decongesting the capital. However, there are others who are bent on moving. The regional minister, Henry Quartey, had earlier stated that the decision to relocate the traders from Abosoka to Afenya was part of the new phase to modernize the region while turning it into an attractive tourist destination in Africa. Already, talks are underway with the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry to release between 2,500 to 4,000 acres of land for the project. The leadership of the Abosoka Spare Parts Dealers Association had earlier indicated that the resettling was optional. But speaking during a press conference to register their displeasure, PRO of the disgruntled association, Techi Ado, threatened a demonstration in 2 weeks if the government fails to rescind the decision to relocate them.
The supposed executives that are in talks with the government about the said relocation are interim executives whose tenure of office have been long expired. They have no authority to have talks with the government on behalf of the traders of Abosoka, and their views do not represent the accurate views of the traders of Abosoka. We consider the intention by the government through the Greater Accra Coordinating Council to relocate us, which is the Abosoka Spare Parts, to Afenya, is an affront to our trading activities. We wish to state that the National Concern Spare Parts Dealers Association will resist every attempt by the government to relocate us to Afenya. We are therefore urging the government, the Greater Accra Coordinating Council, and the government to reverse the decision within 2 weeks. Else, with the concerned spare parts, we embark on a serious demonstration to register our protest against the plan or intention or intended relocation.
Meanwhile, co-chair of the Abosoka Spare Parts Dealers Association, Clement Boateng, reiterated that the relocation was in the interest of traders, while adding that most of them were firmly in support of it. Not so?
Very, very choked. That is why we say Abosoka is a constituency by itself. And that is the more reason why when it's election time, you find all the aspiring candidates trooping to Abosoka here.
So help us understand, what is the challenge that pertains here based on the number of people that you have?
Yes, currently we have a lot of challenges here. We have issue of sanitation, we have issues of security, we have issues of theft, and also we have issues also of parking. All these cars that are parked here are being owned by shop owners, and so when customers comes here to patronize our goods, they don't find any place to park, and so people don't find it convenient to come to Abossey here to patronize our goods.
What then would you say is causing this agitation?
Those that are agitating against this project had to do with those who have put up shops here or have invested here, and they numbered maybe about 20 people, and they have just hide behind the so-called National Concerned Speakers Association to have this press conference today.
Ghana's iron ore and steel companies are set to receive significant boost following the initiative by the government and some potential investors to mine an abandoned ore reserve in the Oti region. The reserve, which holds about 500 million tons of iron ore, will boost steel production in the country and also provide employment to residents in the region.
Mining in Ghana remains a key industry for the growth and development of the country. The bulk of the world's production of iron ore is processed into steel. The needs of the steel industry therefore demands a high exploration and exploitation of iron ore. According to the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation, iron ore deposits discovered in parts of the Oti region, including Akrokowa and Akpafu, both farming communities, are of the highest grade. Speaking to City Business News during a tour to the iron ore sites in Akpafu and Akrokowa by the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation and some potential investors, Director of Geology at GISDEC, Mohamed Tajuddin Baba, noted that although the area holds about 500 million tons of iron ore, modern tools and technology have not been used in mining. This, he says, his outfit and the government are working to come out with the correct estimate of iron ore in the area and begin mining.
We have a rough estimate of about 500 million tons in this area. But with those equipment used in the olden days, they seem to be outmoded and then not captured all what we wanted. So currently we are employing new technology to estimate correctly the reserves in the area.
According to the Director of Geology at GISDEC, they will liaise with both the local people together with private investors in developing the production chain.
The main idea of the current government is to create jobs. So from our name, Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation. So we are to liaise in creating and mining, the refining, and then up to the form steel locally, so that as you go along the production chain, there will be various employment. That is employment in the local, in the host community.
In an interview, Director for Corporate Affairs and International Relations, Abdullahi Nasrullah, told City Business News that GISDEC will process and add value to the ore to support the iron and steel industry.
The law clearly states that we must add value to the ore. So by that, we are talking about processing of the ore and developing the allied sectors. So he spoke about the development of the value chain to include even the production of bolts and nuts and other materials that could support the iron and steel industry. So the law is very clear that we must add value before we can sell the ore. So we are to look at value addition and the entire development of the iron and steel industry.
Well, this is all time will allow us for this week's edition of the Business Weekly Show here on City TV. For more business news stories, check out our website, citybusinessnews.com, or don't miss out on the Business Dashboard, which airs on City TV at 10 p.m. sharp every weekday, with a repeat the following day at 7 and 10:30 a.m. My name is Michael Obodu. Please follow me on Twitter at mobodu. Catch you same time next week. Stay safe, stay informed. Bye-bye.